welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's edition of the Sunday Wire. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We're streaming out live at 21stcenturywire.com, also at alternatecurrentradio.com as well, streaming out on YouTube, Rumble, X, also Facebook Live, BitChute, and also Odyssey as well. So we're streaming out on all those platforms. Thank you very much for joining us. This is episode 546, I believe, of this weekly Omnibus news and analysis radio program. Again, I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We have a pretty powerful show. Yes, we took last week off. I had a major sort of injury, which you can't visibly see because we've covered the makeup on, but an eye injury, which is why I'm wearing reflective spectacles at the moment as well, because my eye is a little bit sensitive. But anyway, it's healed up. It's healing up, in the process of healing up. Appreciate your patience. And the midweek wire will be back on Wednesday, probably with Freddie Ponton. So those of you who missed us, those last programs on Wednesday will be back, regularly scheduled programming this week. So really appreciate you joining us. Now, the leadoff story, of course, we're going to go into overdrive, be joined by some of our teammates at Alternate Current Radio. Hopefully Hesher and Ruckus will be joining us at the second segment after the break. But initially, though, this was the big story, one of the big stories, very important story as well. You've probably seen the show Image, and this is the Gaza Freedom Flotilla, which set sail from Malta, or was attacked actually by, it looks like, Israeli drones or something like that. We're going to get more details, a little more clarity on this story with our first guest, Dr. Frank Romano. We'll bring him on to the stage in just a moment. He was there, and he's also still in Malta, in fact. So he has a lot of details to share about this incident, what really happened, why it happened, and what's going to be the repercussions of this. So this was a humanitarian mission, and some of the activists posted different videos online. We have one video from one of the activists, Nicole Jennis, who was also there on the scene as well. She posted this on X. We'll just play you a short snippet of it, and we'll bring our guest onto the stage, Frank Romano, to discuss this important issue. But here's Nicole Jennis.
The complicity of the world, including the Maltese government, who did not condemn this terror attack on its international waters. My name is Nicole Jennis, a volunteer on this mission of Freedom Flotilla. And let me tell you what I saw with my own eyes. But first, let me tell you that I was not surprised, and I'm not surprised by the smearing campaign, the propaganda, the lies, and all the system and the governments being silent and not condemning this terror attack. That is just an extension of what is happening in Gaza. And from the entity who's butchering children and burning journalists alive, and all the horrors that we're seeing, we are not surprised from Freedom Flotilla that we got attacked. I felt the injustice of not letting us near the boat. I saw armed Maltese forces stopping us, civilians, to board.
So let me bring on to the stage Dr. Frank Romano, has been involved with this Freedom Flotilla for quite a long time. In fact, this is the very same boat that Frank and his other activist cohort were trying to get onto the waters to bring aid to Gaza last year from Turkey. There's a whole story here, and the latest episode of it is something incredible. Again, for more information on this, go to Freedom Flotilla Coalition. This is Gaza F Flotilla on X, on Twitter. You can get more information there. But want to welcome onto the stage Dr. Frank Romano. Frank, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Patrick.
So I'll let you kind of fill us in on this situation, Frank. But the news that we got, you can correct us if this is correct or not, this reporting, but some kind of an Israeli drone attacked this ship in international waters, but I believe right on the border within Maltese EU territorial waters. This would be an international war crime by anybody's standard. You're an international human rights lawyer, a humanitarian. I know you're also working on a case at the ICC for Palestine and also the European Court of Human Rights. So you're well steeped in international law, Frank, but I'll let you take this away incredible situation. What happened?
Well, first of all, people need to know that the Freedom Flotilla was set full of food, water, and medication to bring humanitarian aid to Gaza. And here we are in Malta because the first attempts just last year to get on this same boat and two other boats were stymied. I was there for 3 months preparing to bring 6,000 tons of humanitarian aid to Gaza when we were stopped. First of all, Guinea-Bissau removed its flag, and then the Turkish government, hypocritically, as he tends to pretend, he favors Palestinian rights, and yet stops the flotilla from going to Gaza. Well, here we are now, a year later in Malta, to do that very same thing. And 2 days before this attack, we were all set to go on the bus. There are 30 activists from all over the world, including Nicole. And on the very day we were to enter the boat, just the day before, Palau, which we had a flag, removed the flag. Interesting timing, right before, removed the flag. We're supposed to go on the boat, which means no insurance, no category for the boat, no protection. But we were still going on that boat, set to go. And then like at 6 in the morning, I was all set. I was on one of the first boats to go from Malta to the ship that's waiting in international waters for us to board when the ship at 0023 hours, in other words, a little after midnight on May 2nd, was attacked. And you said it was Israeli. It hasn't been proved that it came from Israeli drones, but in the past, in 2010, notably, when the Mavi Marmara, because this is the Mavi Marmara 2, the Mavi Marmara 1 was attacked in 2010 in international waters, and 10 activists were killed. So we can point the finger and say, well, it's Israel is capable of doing this, and what Israel is doing, which is a continuation of its policies in Gaza, is not only to prevent any humanitarian aid, which it's doing now, which is resumed doing this after the ceasefire, water, food, medication, and the people are suffering and starving and not medicated as before. This is just an extension of their policy to literally squeeze the Gazans. Almost, you can say their policy is to exterminate them. So here we are trying to showcase the struggle. This is our goal. It's not about us. I consider myself, Patrick, just a vehicle trying to showcase what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank, almost a systematic attempt to exterminate the Gaza and get them out. So Trump's plan to take over as a real estate haven, as the Riviera of the Middle East could be implemented. And with all, it's a humanitarian disaster and clearly falls under the definition of genocide. So we were here to at least break the siege. This is our goal of the Freedom Flotilla and the FFC, with the hopes of that the Mavi Marmara 2 would at least break the siege. We didn't expect to get in, but we want to try to do that. And the whole goal is to break the siege so that we can encourage other activists and other boats to do the same. And this Israel claims that any types of attacks against any type of these boats, including the Mavi Marmara in 2010, is exercising its Article 51 right to defend itself. But in reality, it's not about defense. It clearly is to stifle this breaking the siege, and clearly Israel fears that this will open up the doors for other activists to do the same. So if it was Israel that did this, it most likely was. It went a long distance. There was an Israeli warplane hovering above right before the attacks. The two drones that attacked the ship were clearly drones. And they would make these attempts to go a long distance, over 1,000 kilometers, to stop us. That really indicates how powerful, this idea of breaking the siege is, and how much they fear, encouraging other activists to do the same thing. So here I am in Malta now, and you're the only one, Patrick, that really is right here, because all the other activists have left. I'm the only one left. There's one other that's about ready to leave. but I'm the one left to handle the legal issues. And so we don't lose context. The conscience vessel is still there in international waters, still vulnerable to a second attack. The first attack seemed to be scientifically carried out so it would disable the ship. I don't think the way the drones attacked it, they really intended to kill. The way they penetrated the hull with a missile, and they took out a generator. They really wanted to disable and most likely sink the ship. It didn't happen. And we were asking the Maltese government to carry out its law of the sea obligations. And that is to engage in a reasonable research and search and rescue procedure, which it didn't do. It sent a tugboat when after the attack, the deck was on fire. There was a serious fire on deck. And a tugboat came and circled around for a whole hour watching this fire consume the boat until finally the tugboat targeted the boat with its water cannons to help put the fire out. And then the tugboat official invited all the people to abandon ship. And Malta seems to think it's complied with its search and rescue obligations. It's clearly insufficient watching this fire almost engulf the entire boat before it helped put the fire out. And then the crew members, there are about 12 members of the crew and about 6 activists, didn't trust this tugboat and didn't want to leave. You abandon ship. The ship is now subject to shipwreck or sinking without the crew and the occupants. So they did not accept the offer to go on the tugboat, the crew and the occupants, and go to safety. So the boat is still in international waters. Malta refuses to bring the boat into its port, into the secure waters of Malta, would preserve the security of the crew and the occupants. The outside forces would probably very much be prevented to attack and would not attack, because now we're talking about really inside Malta, inside the European Union, because as you know, Malta is a member of the European Union. So, however, I've stayed to work on the legal issue. I am trying to force Malta to comply with its obligations. It's very difficult to show that under the law of the sea, however. Under the law of the sea, under Article 98, is that search and rescue obligation I talked about. There's Article 24 of this law of the sea, where a country is supposed to allow innocent passage to crew, especially a boat in distress. However, it's difficult to show jurisdiction. And what we have here is, even in international waters, the boat has been shadowed by the Coast Guard, entered by a surveyor. So we're tying in clearly jurisdiction here. And if it has jurisdiction, it's still difficult to show law of the sea violation, because the tugboat, which was sent by the Maltese government, which is a Maltese government agent, offered to bring the crew and the occupants to safety, but it was clearly the crew and the occupants didn't trust this tugboat. So what do we have? Well, right now we are pursuing Malta before the European Court of Human Rights, the European Court of Human Rights Court in Strasbourg, for other things that I cannot, it's confidential right now, but we have to find some way of pursuing on a very emergency basis. And we're finding a lot of difficulties, Patrick, because there's a lot of regulations to go through. And this is an emergency procedure. The boat is still there, still exposed. And it's just sitting there with the crew. Now, something that I haven't said before, Patrick, is that a couple of days ago, the occupants, the activists, not the crew, were taken from the boat. They agreed to leave the boat. That was part of the negotiations that Istanbul lawyers made with the Maltese government, that they could leave and without going through a deportation procedure, because none of them are Schengen, have Schengen visas. In other words, they are all Turks, and bringing them into Maltese water would mean they are now illegally in Malta. They have no right to be there. They have no visa. They could be deported. The Maltese government said, no, we'll just take them to the airport. We'll be giving an entry and exit visa, and then they have to leave. But when they left, and this is the scandalous part, Patrick, that I don't know if the international news has ever even, touched upon. As soon as these occupants a couple of days ago of the Conscience left the Conscience, they were treated like criminals, as if they were the ones who were submitting Malta to insecurity, that they're the ones who bombed their own boat, or they're the ones who tried to scuttle the boat. So from the very moment they left the Conscience, they were treated, they were said, you go there. They were ordered to do things. They were surrounded by police and immigration people and taken to the airport. And we only had 5 minutes to see them at the airport before they were routed into their planes and taken to Istanbul. Clearly, they were treated as they were the malefactors. They were weaponizing this whole thing about the Freedom Flotilla when they were all nonviolent activists. As soon as they left, Patrick, as soon as the occupiers, the activists left, the 6 activists, and they were routed to the airport and gotten rid of, basically, the Maltese government, then a surveyor came. A surveyor of the Maltese government came really he wanted to see the extent. He said, we want to see the extent of the damage. In reality, they're looking for weapons, because the press here has demonized the Freedom Flotilla as if we are bringing weapons, not humanitarian aid. And they're saying this. In reality, the press is saying, and some of the Maltese people and the government, we're dangerous, we're not nonviolent, we're out to help Hamas. And well, it turns out the surveyors didn't find weapons, but as a branch of the Maltese government, we're working on tying it into the jurisdiction now, because they came in international waters. The boat was shadowed by the Coast Guard. Now we're looking for jurisdiction, and then I'll be able to give you an update on this, because in a day or two, we've got to file our complaint. It's very urgent. The boat is still vulnerable. We have to do something. And there are procedural issues that are very complicated here, Patrick, but I'm doing my best, and hopefully we'll get that complaint filed. I can't really say which court we'll file it in, and then we'll move forward to try to get that boat into safety and the crew.
So it's almost as if, I don't know if you can speculate this far, but that the authorities maybe had names of certain people from Turkey in advance. They knew who they were looking for. They were going to treat them a little bit more aggressively because of that. Do you think this is possible?
Clearly possible. All the activists were Turks. The crew members are either from Turkey or from Azerbaijan, that country not far from Turkey. And that's true. But it's possible based upon that, and definitely had their names, because the crew's list was on the maritime lists. So they knew that. But I think the deep down is what's happened here is the Maltese government, even though if you look in the history of Malta, they've been supportive of Gaza. But I'm sure they're under the pressure of Israel and the United States to bring that ship into safety. They could tow the ship in. It's pretty disabled. They could tow it in easily. And the Maltese government said, even said orally, they would repair. So I think they have a little bit of a guilt issue here, but they would only repair it on the high seas, on international waters. And I've spoken to 2 experts on how to repair a boat with these type of damages, a huge hole in the hull. And the boat was flooded with water after the water cannons attempted to put out the fire for a while, and their own water attempts to put out the fire. They were able to pump the water out, but for a while there was a great danger of sinking. And now there doesn't seem to be a danger of sinking. But the whole idea to bring the boat into safety, I believe Israel and the United States are pressuring Malta not to do this and to get rid of the boat, because that's going to bring in more media. And they don't want the boat to be repaired, because what happens when the boat's going to be repaired, Patrick? Myself and all the other activists are going to try to get back on that boat to bring this humanitarian aid to these deserving, poor, suffering, as you know, Gazans. And I think that's why they want the boat to stay in international waters, unrepaired, because it stays disabled. And Israel's policy, obviously, is to continue this kind of extermination of Gaza, not bring them humanitarian aid on the pretext of, well, we're going to smoke out Hamas one way or the other. I think, Patrick, the Israeli army has its experts. I believe, this is what I believe in a very cynical way. First of all, asking the question, How come we're getting all these kills every day? It's almost like they're butchering a cadaver. They're going into Jabalia refugee camp and Rafah, places that have already been leveled and continuing to bomb, with or without Hamas traces. And how is this? And I think cynically, Patrick, I think they have a kill number where they think after, say, maybe 80, 90, 100,000, and not just those under the rubble, 100,000 people are killed, women and children. I think the Israelis have calculated after a certain number of kills, Hamas or the representatives of the Gazan people will surrender. And that's why I think they're continuing to just kill, kill, kill. And I can't see any other cynical, horrific explanation of this. And so this vote represents breaking the siege is what we want to do, a clear threat to this whole process of extermination, preventing any humanitarian aid to come in. So people will continue suffering, and maybe they think the Gazan people will turn around and rebel against Hamas, which it's clearly a misunderstanding of this mentality that entrenches the Gazans even more against Israel, losing children and so forth. So I think this strategy is clearly erroneous and it's vicious. And we see part of, again, the Israeli overall strategy is to stop us from feeding the Gazans and opening the spigot to other activists to do the same if we were able to break the siege.
And I might add to that as well. I think Brussels, Ursula von der Leyen herself, very much supports the genocide that's going on in Gaza. She's right behind Israel, as is the British government too, and they play a very influential role in Malta as well. Malta and Britain politically, it's well known to be an outpost, a long-time outpost of British power as well in the Mediterranean. So I think there's a lot of pressure put to bear on Malta. And what I think here is that you're probably going to end up with a cover-up, Frank, depending on how much legal pressure you're able to put to bear on this situation. But certainly somebody has broken the law and somebody has abrogated their duties as an official or violated international law, maritime law, or something like that. And there's a political cover-up that's going to ensue as a result. So, I mean, that's why it's important that I think you're pursuing this. And I think just it's very symbolic, the Freedom Flotilla, as you said, the fact you're bringing attention to the fact that if this is what it takes, is a bunch of concerned people from around the world to pack a boat full of essential aid and then take the risk of being shot, bombed, attacked, trying to break a siege, a humanitarian siege. It should bring attention to the international community, saying, why are these people doing this? Why can't governments do it? Why can't the United States government do it? How impotent is Washington? How impotent is Europe? I mean, just the fact that this is going on in EU territory, this incident is shocking. That if this doesn't wake up Europe, it should. So what's the media coverage been like this on the story so far?
And so this is another of our goals, is to, again, showcase the struggle of the Gazan people. And it's what you're saying is absolutely true, Patrick. It's not like we're, suicidal group, scruffy group of street people that just want to fight, or skinheads that just want to fight out there that have no politics. We all, some of us are professionals, and we have a lot, and we have kids. I've got 4 kids. We've got a lot to lose. What does that mean? That simply means, Patrick, if we're willing to take these chances that we consider the necessary, it does make it more credible, as you alluded to. That we're all we all have families, we all have places to go and jobs and everything, but we see this as a necessary risk to literally suspend everything we're doing. For instance, I was doing a movie when I got called to come here. I'm in the middle of a movie about the Palestinian resistance in New York, and you're going to think this is crazy, but I've retired as a lawyer, I've retired as a law professor. I only have one client as a lawyer anyway, Palestine before the ICC. And I've gone back to my original profession, which is acting. I started out my career as a professional actor in Paris, acting classics like Bourgeois Gentilhomme, Molière. And that's where I got my training. Well, I'm back doing that. So I'm an actor in this movie, which is based on my memoir, actually. It's not about me, it's about the Palestinian resistance, but it's called Love and Terror in the Middle East, 5th edition. And we were in the middle of filming. We did 4 scenes. It's really professional, and they, fairly low budget, but they were able to bring together a lot of great professionals that believe and are willing to take less of a salary, fortunately. And so filming in New York, Paris, and Istanbul, the Istanbul would be the scenes about Jenin and Hebron, because I was banned. I can't go back to Jerusalem to do those scenes, the Palestine scenes, and I can't go to Jordan so much because Jordan is collaborating with Israel. And I wanted to go to Lebanon, where I'd worked in Gaza Flotilla refugee camps with Palestinians. Can't do that because I thought it's kind of precarious there. So we thought we'd do those in Turkey. But I stopped this movie in the midst, and I told the director and the producer that's the only thing that would require me to suspend the movie. And since I'm the lead actor, they have to suspend it unless they want to get a new actor, which they can. But they decided to suspend it if I'm called on the Freedom Flotilla. That takes priority. To do something drastic. But what do you do, Patrick? This is a desperate world, a drastic world. Well, you need drastic, almost desperate solutions in a desperate world, and this is one of them.
No, indeed. And I just put the image up there of the conscience, the boat there. And I know how hard you worked, Frank, and everybody who was in Turkey last year to try to make this happen. And I know it was like you were hitting your head against a wall most of the time with delays and all sorts of things getting in the way, obstacles being placed in front of you. But you were all very sort of dedicated. I know it's a very international group of people. There's people from all over the world, literally all over the world, that are involved in making this happen. And how is this journey treated differently than the Mavri Marmar, the 2010 one? I mean, that was pretty tragic how that ended up. Did you have any ideas about, does everybody talk about how we can, avoid that, what happened there, and somehow have any changes have been made to try to, or is this just something that you just have to roll the dice?
No, actually, it's a very good question. We have addressed that. And in our training, and we actually have simulated exercises where a group of actors acting like Israeli soldiers board the boat, and we're training, and we're all about maybe 20 people at a time, 20 persons at a time, where we're actually in resistance mode, how we're going to be on the boat when we're boarded, potentially boarded, most likely boarded by the Israeli agents. And we've trained very, very carefully not to provoke. Now, the Mavri Marmara 210, they were trained in that way too, but as the soldiers came, they actually started shooting even before they arrived. So it really incensed some of the activists, and they started to resist. They started, pointing water cannons down on the boats that the Israelis were using to board the boat. And some of the Israeli soldiers came and they captured them. They took their weapons away and didn't use them against the Israeli soldiers, and ended up throwing the weapons away. And then the Israeli soldiers were returned to the Israeli Air Force. But the Israelis were so incensed over this resistance, minimal amount of resistance, that they literally executed at point blank several of the activists. At least 9 died, and then 1 died. It was in a coma for, I think, a year or so, and died later. We have specifically addressed this, Patrick, and we're trained specifically not to provoke like that. So if any of us are incensed, and we're all incensed, and we get angry, but we realize if we react angrily in an aggressive way, maybe we blow off steam, but we compromise the entire operation. So those that are like that, they weed them out. And we do that in training. When we find out during training, and they really bring in these people that really push us, hit us sometimes, and drag us around to show us what it's going to be like when the Israeli forces enter. And it's the group, it's this famous Group 13 that is scheduled that always apparently boards the boats headed for Gaza. And it's the same group actually that engaged in that massacre at Shifa Hospital. So they are not choir boys. They are tough killers, really. And so we've been trained differently this time, that we resist getting angry and even resist calling out and name calling, because that again could incense the soldiers to kill, to hit and kill. That would compromise the whole group. So they weeded it out and accepted people being in the group that can retain their anger in the name of the group without being submissive. Though you can resist to a certain degree without being submissive. You don't, for instance, when the Israeli soldiers come, we're not trained to have to be on our knees and this type of thing. We're sitting down and we're linked together. That's how we're trained to be when the soldiers enter the boat. And this has been very careful. So we're trying to counterbalance what happened in 2010.
And the Israeli position, first of all, were there any charges brought against Israel? I mean, is that part of your ICC case, the executions of the activists in 2010, firstly? And secondly, what's the Israeli justification that the ship, they thought the ship's full of bullets or, RPGs or something? Like, what is their sort of rationale?
They often use Article 51 of the UN treaty to say we as a country have the right to defend ourselves. And they are bringing in elements to attack us. And of course, they always say they're bringing weapons. And maybe they even say that we didn't find weapons on the boat because they threw them over the side, or they plant weapons. They're known to do that. But with respect to the Mavi Marmara, in 2010, there was an ICC case. I wasn't involved in that case. I'm involved with the main ICC case directly against Netanyahu. My case was against Netanyahu, Lieberman, and even American. I added Obama and also, who else? It was Obama and it was Trump to the complaint, because they were all involved in Gaza affairs, and they were arming Israel during these massacres. And so that's the case I was involved in that was filed 4 years ago. And I'm not the only lawyer. El Haq from Ramallah and other lawyers filed. And only 4 years later, as you probably know, only a few months ago, we finally got some of what we wanted, and that is arrest warrants against Netanyahu and these other defendants. So at the time, an arrest warrant was only issued against Netanyahu and Gallant, the Secretary of Defense, of Israeli Secretary of Defense minister. But that's a beginning. But 4 years later, so that's what I'm involved in. But the Mavi Marmara ICC case was brought by other lawyers. And at the end of the day, the ICC, I think it was Benzula, was the prosecutor who had considered the case was inadmissible because of the fact that it was not a big enough matter. It only they said most likely there were war crimes here and so forth, but it does not give rise to an ICC case because it was considered minimal, which I disagree with the impact of this whole thing. But that's how, and I think they filed an appeal and it was not retained. So that was the end of the ICC case with respect to the 210 Mavi Marmara.
Yeah, I mean, really, I can't imagine what it's like for the families of those people who were killed there. But obviously, considering what's going on in Gaza right now, the last 20 months, and that brings us to the political considerations. In your opinion, Frank, I know you're looking at the backwards and forwards, the flip-flopping with the Trump administration. It's like one day it's this, the next day it's that, by lunchtime the following day it's something else. And with the latest is that Netanyahu and Trump are on the outs, and that there's rumors that Trump might recognize a Palestinian state. I personally take a lot of this with a grain of salt. I want to get your kind of feeling on recent developments, especially some positive developments, Frank, with regards to talks with Iran and a cessation of hostilities with Yemen by the U.S.? I mean, I can say these are positive, but your feelings on the current political situation.
Yeah, I think first of all, Trump changes like a chameleon to comply with what Trump wants. And most of what Trump wants is basically to showcase, to show, he wants to take credit for certain things. So he's on the one hand a provoker, and on the second hand, he wants to take credit for being, a problem solver. So I have, to tell you the truth, what I see today, however, and this might have something to do with him temporarily being on the outs with Netanyahu, but these on the outs of Netanyahu was also what Obama was considered as being, when in reality I think it was all orchestrated. Good cop, bad cop, I'll do this, and they were actually orchestrating this to make Netanyahu look like a bad guy, make Obama look good for certain political reasons and back and forth. So I have no trust in what Trump says. I do see, however, that he is saying today in the news about supporting private groups, private entities bringing humanitarian aid to Gaza. But the UN has rejected it because they say what's happened is you're going to make these distribution places very difficult to get to. And you're talking about the Israeli soldiers will not be distributing, but they'll be securing the area, which means this whole idea of humanitarian aid has become weaponized. The UN says, no, we're not going to make this into a weapon. We have 400 distribution centers. We need to work on these distribution centers that are already in place, as opposed to form these other distribution centers, which seem to say that this is Trump in control, and we're doing this to make sure that Hamas doesn't get a hold of the goods. In reality, it's all a political ploy. And negating the UN sources that have been very helpful, and UNRWA, extremely helpful in bringing food, is clearly erroneous and, again, playing politics at the expense of genocide, at the expense of the suffering going on, is, to me, disgraceful. And I think Trump is simply showcasing this, wants to show the world he's trying to resolve a problem. I don't see this really as being a problem with Netanyahu. A lot of these tensions with Netanyahu, with American presidents, I think are more orchestrated than truthful for particular purposes. So I don't trust anything he says or does at this point. With Iran, we'll see. With Yemen, we'll see. But we remember just recently, the United States was bombing Yemen mercilessly. So not sure if that really is authentic and they're going to carry through with that, Patrick. I'd like to be optimistic about it, but I coming from the track record of Trump, how he changes like a chameleon, I can't really hang my hat on any of those things, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'll take any positive developments that come down the line on this, but obviously I'm not going to delude myself or my audience or my colleagues and
Right.
About what might happen or some sort of breakthrough, the sort of QAnon type a positive delusional thinking. But Frank, this is kind of significant, is that Yemen effectively shut down international air carriers to Ben Gurion International Airport in Tel Aviv, where Israel was forced to run shuttles between Cyprus and Tel Aviv because no international carriers, not Air France, Lufthansa, Wizz Air, even from Hungary, they all shut down. At least last week, I don't know if they've resumed connections, but it's quite an Achilles heel, Ben Gurion Airport, because this is the number one escape route for settlers should hostilities escalate in occupied territories and in Israel. So isn't it amazing, Frank, that such a poor country, Yemen, doesn't have the GDP of Yemen is less than most major U.S. cities. on their own. I mean, it's extraordinary that of all the Arab countries, that they're the ones that can potentially, at least temporarily, bring Israel to heel. I think it's quite extraordinary. What are your thoughts on this?
It certainly is, not excluding the idea that Iran is supporting Yemen and arming Yemen. So Iran's behind this as well. But keep in mind, I've been back and forth to and probably you have too, Patrick, to the Ben Gurion airport, and it's a highly secured area, and a very high-tech airport. And so this Yemen being able to penetrate all these layers of security is absolutely indicative of what could happen. And at least for now, unless Israel uses this as a pretext to, level Yemen cities, and it has the power to do so. I think internationally it would not want to do so because of the fallout, but that's what I'm concerned is the reaction. But it's true. It's true. It's a real indication that the security is not so, foolproof, and a country of the GNP so minimal was able to do this. Ask the question of another country where it's stronger could be able to do this. Enemies of Israel and the United States may be in that way a game changer, where Israel will be required to, whether it likes to or not, to negotiate with these countries and to work out a solution. Whereas I think the only language that Israel understands is this type of thing. The only language that the United States understands is through force and bluffing and so forth. And I'm saying that as a French and an American citizen. Yes, I think this is something positive. Just like, and I'll just draw a bridge to the Freedom Flotilla having attracted so much media attention, including yourself, Patrick, and appreciate you interviewing me on this. And you probably is the biggest update is from you, because most press people don't even know I'm here. I'm low profile until I can get this legal stuff resolved. And this has brought so much media attention. And we have to say, even if we didn't get on the boat, the fact it was bombed was already a positive thing, to the extent, at least thank God no one was killed, but there were injuries, that it brought so much attention to the suffering of the Gazan people. And if we're so willing to take these risks, and if Israel or another foreign source were willing to go the distance and bomb us, well, you can conclude then, Patrick, and the viewers as well, if we got closer to Gaza, the risks are even higher. They're even saying they could literally sink the boat, bomb us, sink the boat. I mean, would they really? And they could always say, well, we're sorry. We thought that was a destroyer from another country. You hear all these mea culpas, erroneous mea culpas, sorry, and all these people die. It really enhances the risk that we took, and the media followed suit and really came together and showcased again the risk we're taking for a real credible cause, and we're just there to bring humanitarian aid to Gaza, and also to showcase the West Bank and how the settlers and things have been trying to shut down the Palestinians there and take it over and annex it. It's all linked. And so these are positive things. I think we're being realistically positive about these things, Patrick. And I'm not, pulling at straws just to be positive, just to kind of lighten. That's a real reason to feel positive waves and to the struggle when we haven't seen much positive happening lately.
And Frank, one of the final things I just want to be sure that our audience knows, if this is a cause that they want to support, these are the types of actions that they want to support. What's the best way for people to engage with this, with the Freedom Flotilla?
Well, there's the Freedom Flotilla website. You just go freedomflotilla.com or ffc.com, something like that. And if people want to communicate with me, I'm on Facebook, so Frank Romano. and loveandterror.com. And and on there's a lot of videos and photos. So I suggest people think it through. Don't just jump out there and even let your emotions take you there, because we see emotions can be good, but emotions can also lead us astray. Take a look at all these different things, and you'll see that the Freedom Flotilla really is a humanitarian organization, and I stand for humanitarian rights. And any help people can offer by being a part of Freedom Flotilla, or donations or whatever, are well received, because we're pretty low budget. And a lot of us being here are funded by our own individual resources. Most of us being here, whether we're staying in hotels or whatever, coming from our own pockets. We could always use a bit of help, but especially just people out there transferring messages. That's a huge help. Even if you can't leave the comfort of your home, just transferring messages around and comments that you could have online are very helpful. And let's face it, if you even do that, that's more than most people are doing now. Most people are kind of in a comfort zone and kind of ignoring what's going on. And just by doing that, by your messages online or whatever, and support is still a lot. And I encourage you to do what you can to make it a better world and to free Palestine, and to support you, Patrick. And Patrick and Henningsen has been in media a long time and been a support. And I know you've been hit. You've taken a lot of hits. And you're still in there, and we really appreciate you.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Frank. And again, Freedom Flotilla, this is a good, there's a link tree on their X Twitter account there, Gaza F Flotilla, Freedom Flotilla Coalition. All the links are there. The website's there, freedomflotilla.org. And plenty of information, a lot of images. You can get up to date. You can see, the damage from the boat. Everything's posted on that. It's a very good website. It's got very good high quality images on there, very well organized. So I want to direct people there as well for more information. So Frank, I think hopefully, good luck with your efforts trying to, shed some light and get some justice on this issue and your various legal efforts. We'll try to stay in touch, because I know this is very important work you're doing. And the consequences are massive. I'm actually very encouraged that the new Pope, I know it's a separate topic, but he gave a speech in the last day or so and immediately called out these wars and specifically mentioned Gaza as well. So I think that's off to a good start from that point of view. I think it's very influential. If he's able to move the dial a little bit politically, it's most welcome there. So it's a positive, definitely.
Sure, and we'll have more information. Working with the lawyer in a day or two. If you want to come back on it, it should be, if things work out, maybe we'll have a legal impact on this, because we're working in urgency, and I think within a day we'll have new information for you. And why not you get the exclusive on it? You've been so faithful to this movement and to making it a better world. So maybe in a day or so we'll have more information for you if you want to renew this interview.
Absolutely. Yeah. Stay in touch, Frank. We'll fire up our streams for you if that information's coming out. But Dr. Frank Romano, and again, you can find Frank on Facebook as well, and also information about the Freedom Flotilla on the various sites online. Go to the X Twitter portal as well and get information there. Frank, thank you very much for joining us on the Sunday Wire live from Malta. Appreciate your efforts. And no man left behind, the last man in Malta. So thanks for putting it all in there and laying it all on the line for us, Frank. Appreciate it.
Welcome. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks for viewing this, and we'll keep it going.
And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. That's Dr. Frank Romano. We're going to go to a break in just a moment, and we're going to go into overdrive and hopefully connect with some of our teammates at Alternate Current Radio Network, some familiar faces, possibly even, I dare say, maybe, I'm not sure, Basil Valentine's off this week, but who knows, he might make an appearance, so we look forward to that. But nonetheless, I actually want to play a track on the break from a great independent artist, Peyote for President, who is inspired by Manu Chao. He's play, you'll get the music straight away. But he's a phenomenal singer-songwriter of the Latino variety, international artist, world music artist. Peyote for President, The Palestinian Children is the name of his track. Enjoy this song. We'll be back after the break. We'll see you in a few minutes.